Hey everyone, on Saturday is the Cox Plate from Moonee Valley. It's race number 10. It'll be the final race from the Valley before they redevelop the track, so there'll be no meetings there for quite some time. They're also changing the shape and the layout of the track and everything. It's a bit of like an end of an era from the Valley here. They're also running a meeting there on Friday night. We'll be betting into that meeting, and then of course betting Saturday, and not just at the Valley on Saturday, but also right around Australia. There's close enough to 50 races on, metro races on a Saturday this time of year, and you want to go through and pick and choose the right races to bet into. That's the best way to make profit. Don't sit there, bet every single race. Find the best opportunities, and also look right across all the metro meetings. Don't just stick to one particular track and try and bet in every single race there. That's the best way to go about it. But in this video, I'm going to preview the Cox Plate specifically, and I'm going to go through every single runner in the race, share with you which horses I think can win, which horses I think can't, and obviously the main chances in the race. Now, the Cox Plate is run over 2,040 meters. They start at the top of the home straight. Right, it's only a short home straight at the Valley. Then they do a lap of the circuit. So a really good race every single year. It's not like a massive field or lots of different form lines lining up into the race. You sometimes get some international runners. That's not the case this year. And so we've got basically three main form lines leading into this year's Cox Plate, which with the scratching of Globe, which happened earlier this morning, we now only have the 8 runners overall. Before we get into this year's race, we'll go back and look at the previous 3 winners. So last year's winner was via Sistina, who starts favorite in the race this year. It was ridden by James McDonald, who's now won the last 3 Cox Plates, goes for 4 in a row here. Sistina carried 57 kilos last year, had barrier 4, and started $5. It was a race where Pride of Jenny led them along at a strong tempo. Sistina was in the back 4 in the run, one off the fence. McDonald was the first jockey to peel 3 wide, which was at about the 700 meter mark, then made a sustained 3 and 4 wide run, looped the field and had them beaten at the top of the straight. Ended up winning the race by 8 lengths and set a track record in the process. Leading up to last year's Cox Plate, via Sistina won the Turnbull, which was over the 2,000 meters leading in. I was 4th up going into the Cox Plate and has followed the exact same preparation as last year going into this one. Did win the Turnbull last year, didn't win it this year, but did win first up in Sydney, the same as last year, and then also didn't win the Maccabi Diva, the exact same as last year. Prior to that, McDonald rode Romantic Warrior with 59 kilos, barrier 7 as a $3.60 shot. It ran 4th in the Turnbull in its lead up. It was only 2nd up going into the Cox Plate that year. Its first up run in that Turnbull finished 3rd in that race. The horses that beat it home there were Gold Trip and West Wind Blows. Those 2 horses ran 2nd and 3rd in the following Caulfield Cup, behind Without a Fight, who made it the Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup double. So you can see the strong form lines there. The 2022 winner was Animo, carried 57.5 kilos, barrier 4, started $2.40, and atoned for the 2nd placing in 2021, where it finished 2nd behind State of Rest. They went to a protest there with Williams coming up underneath State of Rest. Didn't end up winning the 2021 one, obviously running 2nd, but atoned for it there. Animo won the Caulfield Stakes as the lead up going into the 2022 Cox Plate, and was also 4th up in the preparation. So aside from the overseas horses, generally it's 4th up horses peaking and winning the Cox Plate. So as I mentioned, there's 3 main form lines coming into this year's Cox Plate. The main one of those, and the strongest one, is the Turnbull, which is run over 2,000 meters at Flemington. It was won by Sir Delius, who was going into this race and also the Melbourne Cup as favorite. Tino ran 2nd in that race. Via Sistina ran 3rd. 4th place was Half Yours, who came out off the Turnbull and won the Caulfield Cup last week as expected. And then 5th in the Turnbull was Aliana. So there's 3 runners out of the Turnbull coming into this race, and there are also 3 of the 4 runners at the top of the market. The other form reference is the Might and Power, which is over the 2,000, but at Caulfield, it was won by Globe in a 4-horse field. Now, Globe's the runner that was scratched from this race. 2nd in that 4-horse field was Treasure the Moment. 3rd was Buckaroo. And then, don't need to worry about He's a Shock, who was out of it. Doesn't line up here. Then the other form reference that gets the 7 of the 8 runners is the Hill Stakes up in Sydney at Rose Hill over the 1,900 meters. That race was won by Lindemann, who you can tie in form lines through Sir Delius with Lindemann, as Sir Delius ran second to Lindemann first up. That race at Rose Hill, the Hill Stakes, Attrition ran second in that race, and also Light Infantryman, who's the outsider in the market in the Cox Plate, ran ninth there. I feel like these two are, in a way, just making up the numbers here and aren't genuine winning chances. But there is the potential if they get the control out in front, and I think that's going to be key. Like, Attrition, Light Infantryman are the key runners from a speed and map perspective. I think they both need to roll forward. I don't think like either of them can win this race by settling midfield or worse. They're not going to go back, give horses like Via Sistina, Antino, Aliana a head start and be able to beat them. They need to be up on speed and rolling along and make those horses run them down, like basically try and steal it from out in front, which is something that can be done around the Valley. It's one of a few tracks around Australia where if you get the tactics right, the way the track bends into the home straight, if you get off and rolling, it can be hard for horses to make up ground. I don't think that's going to happen here, but I've seen previously these two horses go forward and have success. In that Hill Stakes, Attrition went forward, sat second alongside Lindemann. They were 1-2 home. Expect Williams to want to roll forward from a low gate without doing anything too crazy. And then the other is Light Infantryman from the Y draw. Expect Ethan Brown to look to go forward. Light Infantryman did win the Group 1 Northerly at Ascot, which is over 1,800 meters, by sitting outside the lead. The run prior it had at Ascot before that, they went back in the field, ran on okay without being a winning chance. So they've had success settling back and then going forward. Expect from the draw Ethan Brown to push the button early, find a spot up on speed. Then it's a matter of how quick do they go in front. Do they get to the front and then slam the brakes on, or do they just roll along at an average or better tempo, knowing that once you hit the 1,000-meter mark, that tempo is going to pick up and everyone's going to get started rolling. So do you think, like, no matter what, these two can't go too slow out in front, because when that sprint goes on, they're just going to get quickly overrun? The other key runner from a tempos perspective, or there's two of them, is Antino and also Treasure the Moment. Treasure the Moment is well in the market. It's $10 and $6 right now, and they have barrier number 1 for Damian Lane. If he wants to, there is the opportunity, looking at the map right now, that he may be able to lead, assuming Treasure the Moment jumps well, or worst case scenario, he sits in the box seat, so just in behind leaders. I can't really see Treasure the Moment being anywhere else in this field other than one of those two spots. The issue, if he does get the box seat, is he's probably going to be behind the two roughest horses in the racing, need luck at a key stage, and box seat at the Valley is one of the worst places that you can be, especially when you're behind horses well outside the market that are probably going to be tiring late. And if you get held up, lose momentum, then it's race over. So Lane is definitely going to be aware of that, and that's why I think there is a bit of a chance he may try and push up underneath Light Infantryman who comes across and try and hold the lead from there. And potentially, if then Light Infantryman wants to keep on going, then that'll allow Treasure the Moment to pop off the fence and make sure he's in nuts that. And then with Antino, that's the interesting one. Drawn barrier number 6. It's an okay barrier. And I think this barrier allows Blake Shin to kind of coast along a little bit early, just be neutral, see what the pace is, see if there's somewhere he can slot in forward of midfield to try and avoid going back and then having to make a mid-race move. So we'll get to that later in the video. But those are the key aspects to the overall like speed map perspective, which is something you definitely want to pay attention to, not just betting on big races, but every single race. You need to know where your horse is going to map in the run, where it's going to settle, and if the race is going to be run soon. So we've covered 7 of the 8 runners. There's one that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is the only 3-year-old in the race with the 49.5 kilos. That is Nepotism. It's going to be ridden by Zach Lloyd here. It ran 7th in the Caulfield Guineas over the 1,600 meters last start, obviously at Caulfield. This is going to be its first race beyond 1,600 meters. Did win the Group 1 Champagne Stakes at Randwick earlier this year over the 1,600. Sat last there, went around and rounded them up in a pretty dominant performance. Has been running in really tough races, all preparation, with about 57 kilos, give or take half a kilo or a kilo. This is the first go against like the best of the best in Australia. So it's definitely a tough test, is well weighted. The thing with Nepotism, and something that I find really interesting is last start in that Caulfield Guineas, we not finished 7th, beaten a few lengths, but was given an ultra soft ride from Blake Shin. I don't know if that was intention or victim of circumstance, but he had barrier number 9 and he was able to find the fence from there first of all. So a touch negative early, got back, got down to the rail, but then was in the back of the field, saved ground along the inside, and basically rode the final 400 meters from a spot back in the field under hands and heels. Got a little bit of a check late with the horse laying out, had to go back underneath that runner, and was making up ground without it being like an absolute flashing light run in behind them. Just really would have liked to see Nepotism pushed right out there to see how strong it was through the line, especially going up to the 2040 meters for the first time. And not that on paper this looks to be a high pressure race, but it's not going to be like an absolute dawdle over this distance in this kind of race. So that's the thing that concerns me. It's getting 6 kilos off Treasure the Moment and Aliana, and 7.5 kilos off Via Sistina, and then obviously more off of almost 10 kilos off Antino, who's the other runner in the market. But the big question mark is the 2040 meters for the first time after not being fully pushed out. Because going into this kind of race, I really want horses to be at absolute peak fitness, and Nepotism's also one of like only a few runners that are stepping right up in distance from the 1600 and haven't previously had a run over the 2000 or 1900 leading in. Slightly against it from that perspective, but should run an okay enough race, but I just don't think it's going to be quite a match for them here, and is about the right price at the $20 mark. Now, the favorite in the race, Via Sistina, I want to talk about her first, goes up clear favorite after bolting in this race last year, won it by 8 lengths. They followed that same identical preparation that they did last year. The only difference from this year to last year was Sistina won the Turnbull last year, won it by 0.2 of a length, but it was a really strong win, really battled it out with Buckaroo in the run to the line there. Buckaroo followed that up with a second placing in the Caulfield Cup. This year, they kicked off the prep with a good win in Sydney, beat home Lindemann and Cheowolf, also Aliana in there as well. The reason I mention those two horses is Lindemann has won 2 Group 2s since then, plus a photo second placing to Fangirl. And then also Cheowolf has a dominant King Charles win last Saturday. So that first up run, even though it was only over the 1400 meters and Via Sistina definitely wasn't wound up there, the form out of that race has definitely stood up in New South Wales. Then in the Maccabi Diva, couldn't quite get there. Mr. Brightside got complete control out in front. Perfect ride to win the race by Craig Williams. What happened in that race, I can't see happening in the Cox Plate. That's for sure. Mr. Brightside ran second in that King Charles last week behind Cheowolf and had to do a lot of work early in the run there, having to get across from the wide draw when Pride of Jenny was about a good step slow out of the gates, and Williams then ended up having to follow Pride of Jenny across, but just took too much time now and truly through the first turn by the time they got there. And then in the third up run was a third placing in the Turnbull for Via Sistina. Built into the race, 3 wide with cover, ran the fastest 400 to 200 meter, and then peaked late on the run. Couldn't reel in Sir Dilius or Antino, who were both forward of Via Sistina in the run. And potentially like that slowly run Maccabi Diva left Via Sistina a little bit underdone. This is the target race. This is like grand final time with the Waller stable. The one thing that you always got to pay attention to with them. Sistina should be absolutely at the peak now. Expect her to improve at least another length, if not 2 or 3 going into this race. I think we'll see a much different horse that we've seen at the past couple of runs. Like with the Waller stable, is like they know the races that they want to win with a certain horse, and the whole preparation is geared towards winning that race. It's not like the Winx factor where Winx was made sure to win every single start to keep the streak going. That's not the case with every horse. So don't really worry about horses not winning every start or anything like that. That's not like a complete knock against them. And I do think this race is very similar to the Everest last week. If Via Sistina turns up to her best, she'll win the race. Similar to last week, Kaying Rising turned up somewhere near the best, then he was going to win the race. For this one, we've got the right trainer and jockey combination. James McDonald's won the last 3 Cox Plates. Chris Waller's won 5 of the past 10. Last year with Via Sistina, and then the 4 in a row for Winx between 2015 and 2018. Draws perfectly in barrier 5, gets an ideal run. Just needs the pace. If they go ultra slow and then try and make it a sprint home, then that's against Via Sistina. But if we get an average or better tempo throughout, if something wants to set the speed on and just go a little bit quicker out in front and give themselves a chance of winning, then it sets it up for her to be winning. Since arriving in Australia, Via Sistina's had 8 runs at the 2,000 meter, give or take a little distance, for 6 wins. From those 8, a second to Pride of Jenny and a third last start in that Turnbull. Prior to coming to Australia, had 5 top 2 runs over this distance. 4 of those 5 were in Group 1 race. So this is the ideal distance for Via Sistina as well. And if she finds her best, it's going to be hard to beat. And the odds right now at this $2.20 mark are suggesting Via Sistina is going to turn up, and we're going to see like something similar to last year, not in terms of margin of win, but more so in terms, because I think the way the race was run definitely set it up more so last year. But overall performance, I think we're going to see something similar again this time around. The stable obviously would have learnt from last year what works for this horse, and I think it is being tuned up to this race. So I think is the clear top pick. So we'll just go through the rest of the runners. And also, even though it's clear top pick, the reason why you want to make sure you're not just betting into one race or just the biggest race of the day is, even though this is the most likely winner, it's about $2.20 in this race. It's not a $2.20 shot where there are no dangers. There's races like every single week where you can find horses at $2.40, $2.50, even $3 where there's no other dangers in the race. And if that horse runs up to somewhere near their best, they'll win that race at those odds. And that's somewhat the case here for Via Sistina, but there are slight question marks on it, and it's obviously a really good field. So even though it is the top pick, there's also other really good betting opportunities around in other races too. Going through the rest of the field, the next of Waller's runners is Aliana. Ran 5th last start, about half a length behind Via Sistina. Had the softer run in transit, was down along the inside. Via Sistina built 3 wide to cover that bit of extra ground. And Aliana was coming back a little bit very late. As I mentioned, Via Sistina peaked on the run late there. But I think Via Sistina has Aliana covered. They followed an identical preparation. Aliana did beat home Via Sistina 2 back in the Maccabi Diva, but also had the softer run in that race as well. But there's only been about half a length between them, all back to the first up run at Sydney. The stable has booked Hugh Bowman to take the ride here, who was the jockey of Winx back those years ago. This will be his first ride on Aliana. He knows how to win the race. Will need a good ride though from the widest barrier. They may need to go back from there. Just feel they will need a good ride from the widest draw and may need to go back from there. Don't really see where Aliana can slot in, and just feel like she's not quite at an absolute peak, and maybe 12 months from now we'll go around favorite in this race. And right now the 2400 is a little bit more suitable, whereas Via Sistina is an out and out 2000 meter horse. Of the two of them, I think there are a lot more positives for Via Sistina going into this race, that's for sure. And I'd be looking for Aliana next year or the year after in particular. The other runner for Waller is Buckaroo. That's the third of his 3 runners. Buckaroo hasn't won a race since the Underwood in September last year. He's a pretty consistent horse overall though. Like, hasn't been winning, but runs in and around the mark. Has placed in all 3 Group 1s this preparation. Good run first up in the members. He was $61 there over the 1400. Was in behind Treasure of the Moment and Mr. Brightside. Then in the Underwood this year, headed Sir Dealers. Came with a big run down the outside. Went past Sir Dealers, who kicked back and won the race. Buckaroo peaked on the run there and just didn't quite run it out. Sir Dealers went into that Turnbull race, so that's the other like form reference following that up, and beat home Via Sistina, Aliana, and Dantino there. So you can type Buckaroo in that way. The third up run was over the 2000 in the Might and Power. Similar to Treasure of the Moment, couldn't reel in Globe, who led all the way. Both Treasure of the Moment and Buckaroo were right there at about the 200 and 250 meter mark, and Globe was able to kick away again. They get Mark Zara going on for the first time. This will be the 4th different jockey for this horse, this preparation, which is a little bit weird. They had Jai McNeil, they had Blake Shin, and then last start had James McDonald on board. So interesting now Zara goes on, like can't rule him out in Group 1s. I've spoken about that previously. The knock with Buckaroo, this horse is 0 from 10 at this distance range. Has a few second placings in there, but yet to win over the 2000. Last start dropped out late over this distance. Obviously will improve fitness-wise again, and there's no reason why it won't run out 2000. I just don't think it's his ideal distance range. It has previously run second in a Caulfield Cup last year, but I just think I have question marks on this particular distance range. Like, interesting that it's run a Group 1 over the 1800 and then run second in a Group 1 over 2400, but yeah, just a little bit of concern there. Has also never raced at the Valley, which is definitely a question mark with Buckaroo too. Then we have Treasure the Moment. This is the big question mark horse for me. Treasure the Moment won 8 straight races going into this preparation, then produced like an emphatic first up win at Caulfield over the 1400 meters, winning eased up, couldn't have been any more dominant there. And beat home horses like Mr. Brightside, Buckaroo, Fangirl, and Tino all in that race. So definitely, like, off that first up performance, looked to be flying. Had the issue with Click. Then Damien Lane missed the ride at the Valley over the 1600 meters, where it started $1.50. Couldn't run down Pride of Jenny, who put in a big first up performance. Didn't go all that well in the King Charles following that. And then was the horse that started $1.60 in the Might and Power leading in, when second to Globe ended up being beaten 3 lengths in that, with Damien Lane being on board. That was the only time from 8 rides on Treasure the Moment that Damien Lane hasn't won on her. He had a 7-0 record going into that start. Now it's 7 wins and 1 second placing from 8 rides. So he definitely knows how to get the best out of her. He sticks with Treasure the Moment over Aliana. Treasure the Moment can no doubt run a strong 2000 meters and lands in a good spot from the inside gate. I'm just a little bit concerned if they end up box seat, then there's going to be traffic at a key stage, and then that could make things really difficult. But definitely the biggest danger to Via Sistina, if Treasure the Moment brings her best, if she can get back to that, was there, like, right there to go past Globe last start, but couldn't quicken at the 200 meters. And when, like, Globe went hard early, came back to the field, and both Buckaroo and Treasure the Moment were right there. They couldn't go past, and Globe was able to kick and then extend away. And that's just the concern. But if the stable can get Treasure the Moment right with the run that it maps to get, it's definitely a big chance in the race. And then the other runner, the only one I haven't mentioned yet, is the second favorite. That is Antino, who comes out of that Turnbull running a big second placing behind Sir Delius. Was 3 wide without cover the whole race and stuck on really well to hold off Via Sistina, who finished in 3rd. It's a horse that generally settles back and then looks to roll forward mid-race. End of last prep, won the Group 1 Doomben Cup over this distance by nearly 3 lengths. This is definitely a tougher field than that, though. Beat Via Sistina and Aliana last start over the 2000, finished just behind them in the Maccabi Diva. Had the chance to go past Via Sistina in that Maccabi Diva over the 1600, but she was definitely holding Antino through the line. I think Antino's winning chance is definitely speed dependent. From the barrier, the most likely situation is ends up settling midfield or back. But if they go slow, then Shin can quickly whip around them, like we've seen him do on this horse a number of times. Take off at the start of the back straight, roll up on speed, similar somewhat to last start, but didn't quite get it completely right. Covered a lot of extra ground in that race. Then if light infantryman or attrition roll along quick, then Antino's not going to be able to do that, which I think hurts his chances overall. I think the best chance Antino has of winning this race is Blake Shin to be neutral early and judge the tempo. If he can then slide forward and slot in and already get that spot, then that's the best ideal outcome for this horse, because I don't know if he's going to have the opportunity to roll around them that you can sometimes do in other races where they don't get going as early on in the race. Like with the Cox Plate, they're basically at full speed at the 600, if not prior, whereas other races, they can hold up until the 300 or the 400 before really getting moving, which suits like a horse like Antino a little bit more. So I think there's question marks on Antino. If the race ends up setting up perfectly, then it can win. But I have it third pick at the moment, even though it is second favorite. Sistina is the most likely winner that's going to improve and peak into this, but is at the top of the market. Then you have Treasure the Moment. If she can find her best form with the map for Damien Lane, I think is definitely in the race. That's for sure, but there's question marks around her. Antino, if everything plays out perfectly, Blake Shin will try and steal it. And then Aliana. I think Aliana, not quite right up to this right now, but stuck with Sistina all prep. There hasn't been much between them. Should be competitive with Hugh Bowman taking the ride. Outside of those four, I don't think there's really any other main winning chances that you need to be too worried of. In my opinion, it's Sistina or Treasure the Moment are going to win the race. And historically, this has been a race that's been dominated by horses at the top of the market, if not at it or close to it. It's not one that's often won by big outsiders that we've seen in previous years that happen in previous other races. It's generally like the best horses win. The only difference that I think between this year and previous years is there's not as many horses going at their absolute best coming into this race. Like, we've got a lot of horses that have been in and around the mark. That also could just be a case of trainers waiting and biding their time to peak for this race. That's how I'm thinking that it's playing out. And as much as they might not have looked like they're running their best, like, the figures do stack up fairly well. They've been around the mark. And I just think, like, most likely outcome here is Sistina goes back to back and wins the final race at the Valley. So definitely an exciting race, not one that I recommend max betting or anything like that. You want to make sure you look across all the different races. If you want to follow everything that I'm personally betting, follow all the same selections, you can do that through the link in the description. We picked up almost 6 units yesterday, picked up it's about 6.5 units on Saturday. So things really starting to build now, right at the midpoint of the spring. The next few weeks going to get really busy with Melbourne Cup coming up just a couple of weeks away. So really exciting times in the racing world. Yesterday, when I mentioned we made almost 6 units, we had 8 bets on the day, 5 wins, 3 second placings, 2 of those being photo finishes where we just missed in the photo. The other one of those, Tennessee Spirit, who we backed at $2.30, ended up starting at $1.45, was run down by the only danger in the race in Ladies Pro. It was a day where we were very close to going 8 from 8 overall, but still a good profitable day overall. With the racing selections, I send them out the night before race day. So for Friday night, all the plays will be out on Thursday night. And for Saturday coming up, all the plays will be out on Friday afternoon with a video preview going in depth, breaking down every single horse that we're backing and sharing with you the reasons why I'm backing it. So if you want to make money monthly on a consistent basis, betting on horse racing, know what horses to back and also learn why to back certain horses and why not to bet in certain races, definitely check out the racing show and I'll help you make profits from your betting accounts on horse racing. Thanks guys, have a great weekend and I'll see you in the next video.